Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPenn.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton, episode 105, the final episode of the year. We will be dropping some just solo interviews over the break, but this is the last full show until obviously the next UFC event in January. But we're first going to be joined by Julian Erosa to preview his fight against Alex Caceres. This is a very fun fight. Julian's called for this fight before. He's really looking forward to fighting Caceres. This guy he's wanted. He likes his style matchup. He thinks this is bonus money written all over, and he knows a win over Alex puts him in a good spot and puts him kind of right in that top 15 or right near the top 15. We're then going to be joined by David Feldman, the BKFC president. Just get a checkup on BKFC. Obviously, they had their 50th event last weekend. We kind of talked about that, and obviously some big names, Mike Perry, Paige Van Zandt, Greg Hardy, etc., about kind of what the future holds for BKFC and where they're going to go with signings. Obviously, a lot of big free agents. Nate Diaz, Eddie Alvarez, he says he's going to be interested in everyone. He wants to make BKFC the biggest it can be, and he knows free agents is a big way to do that. We're then going to be joined by Cody Brundage to preview his short notice fight against Michal Oleksiejczuk. Cody was obviously just fight Adolfo Vieira. Vieira pulled out. He didn't think he was going to get one more fight this year. He gets a call to fight Michal. A guy his teammate Justin Jacoby fought. He was really happy with this opponent. He thinks Michal holds more weight in the middleweight division than Vieira, so he thinks a win does a lot for him. We're then going to talk to Bryan Battle about his short notice fight against Hinat Fakhramonov. Obviously, Bryan, tough winner, coming off that welterweight debut win. Looked very impressive in it as he knocked out Takashi Sato in 44 seconds. He was hoping to make a quick turnaround. That didn't work, but when he found out Renat's opponent fell out, he asked his manager to get this fight, and that's exactly what they did. We then close things out talking with Journey Newson and the Saidyokub Kakhramonov. Journey Newson fighting Sergey Morozov, supposed to open up the card. Journey obviously coming off the win over Fernie Garcia. Really good chat with Journey about kind of everything he's been through. He obviously deals with a lot of mental health struggles, so it's a really good open chat with him about that. But he knows a win over Sergey does a whole lot for him as he looks at the guys that have beat him are kind of those top 15 guys. And as mentioned, we close things out talking to Saidyokub Kakhramonov to preview his fight against Sayed Nurmagomedov. He really likes this matchup. He doesn't think Sayed's a much of a good fighter. He thinks he's just a kicker. He thinks he can really expose him and get a big win and really begin 2023 with a big they're going to 2023 off a big win and really try to get into those ranks and be a top 10 fighter by the end of the year. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and even during the off weeks, just tune into the channel. There will be some interviews dropping with some notable fighters, kind of catching up what their future holds and all that. But thank you, Ann, for another year listening, and be sure to share the show and subscribe again. All right, we're joined by UFC featherweight Julian Erosa, who's got a big fight upcoming. Julian, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going fantastic. Thanks for having me on again. Cool.
Yeah, back-to-back fights. You get the opponent you call for. Like in our one interview, you said you wanted Hakeem. You obviously get that after Hakeem. You said you want Caceres, and here you are fighting Alex Caceres. So how happy are you that like the back-to-back fights your kind of wish has come true?
Yeah, well, the very first fight that I ever got in the UFC that I kind of asked for was the Peterson fight. I'd asked for Peterson. I don't know if I'd asked him about it in like interviews, but I'd asked my management about it, and it kind of never like fruition. And then finally, it came, and I was like, oh, it finally was a fight that I was, asking for. And then the Dawodu fight wasn't necessarily something I was asking for the style matchup. I just figured he fought the same night that I did with Peterson, and that it would be, we both won our fights. We were the featherweights on that card. So I figured they would just have us lined up to do it again. So I just figured maybe that would be a fight that, they would look into matching for us. And, and then it finally came around. We both took quite a bit of, not a long time off, but it was, like 7 or 8 months. And so it kind of worked out perfectly. We both, had fought on the same card, and then we're lined up to fight again. So, it did come around full circle for me and Dawodu to fight. And, the perception of people can be a bit more than, how it turns out. And, the perception of Dawodu, I watched all his fights, and man, the guy I figured was going to be just a real tough cookie, but, I don't know what, I think I just, hurting him early on in that fight, I think he was on autopilot. And so, the fight turned out to be one of the easiest fights I've had in the UFC, and against one of the top guys that I fought. So I think that's why it was so impressive in a lot of people's eyes, was kind of who I did it to. But I think early on I heard him, and I think he was on autopilot, and that's why I looked so much better throughout that fight. Not to take any credit away from, what I had done to him in the first round. I figured, I was going to end up getting him out after I heard him a couple of times, but he's a tough cookie. But he didn't seem like he was fully there like I've seen him in other fights. And so that was nice. for me to be able to hurt him like that and then kind of control the fight the rest of the way. And then with the Caceres, I've been calling him out for a long time, and not for any like disrespectful reason, or I think I'm going to just maul him or run through him. I just always thought it'd be a fun fight. Those are the fights I'm looking for. I'm looking for the fight of the nights, and I didn't know if me and Peterson were going to get it, but I knew he was a tough guy and was willing to stand and bang. And so we were lucky enough to end up getting that, and he missed weight, so I basically got 2 fight of the nights that night, and then so that's why I've been asking for Caceres, because I just think it's stylistically it matches up for a fun fight.
And he obviously is a big name too. Like, imagine that probably has to do something like. I know he was in the rankings. I'm not sure if he's still in it, but like, is it like stylistic? Like, how do you think you match up against him?
I just, I think we both have a little bit of unorthodox striking. I'm a bit bigger than he is for sure. He used to fight 35. And I can just tell he probably doesn't cut much weight. And for me to make 45 is a bit difficult, but I get the job done because I've been here and done it plenty of times before. So, I know what it takes to get my weight down like that. I've been, sparring guys that are a bit quicker, a little smaller than me, southpaws. I think I'm gonna just, the one thing that it's so hard to really anticipate what someone's gonna be like until you're really in there with him. And it's hard for people to realize the pressure and the cardio and the conditioning and the endurance and the willingness that I have to fight, and the willingness I have to get knocked out to try to knock you out. And you don't really know that until you're in the cage with me. So, and if that's the first time you're dealing with it, it's going to be too late if you're dealing with that in the fight. And so, I think he's a fun one because he's very elusive and he's a puzzle I got to figure out. But I think over the course of the 15 minutes, you'll end up seeing me kind of walking him down and just kind of pushing the pace and pushing my cardio onto him, and I feel like I can break him in the 3rd round.
Are you a bit disappointed you're not on that 282 card a week before? Like, all your fights should, like, you're a guy that's be fighting in front of fans. Then on the flip side, I imagine you're probably pretty happy you could squeak one more in this year.
Yeah, I honestly, I was just happy to get a fight, man. Like, and to get it in this timing is fantastic for me. I got, my wife's doing some stuff over in Washington State, so I wanted to get a fight in before the end of the year. That way we can kind of celebrate Christmas and New Year's together. And also, like there was a big gap obviously between the Peterson and Dawodu fight, so I want to be more active than that, and usually I am. So it's nice to get another fight in this year. But yeah, I don't really, honestly for me, I don't care to be on the big cards. I honestly rather be on the smaller cards because I feel like there's a bit more. It's a bit more advantageous for a guy like me to get a bonus on the smaller card. Like, if you have, like 2 title fights or 3, if you have a bunch of people fighting that are like, the cream of the crop, I feel like it's a bit tough to get those bonuses. But if you're on some of the fight nights, I think you can get away with them a little easier that way.
Yeah, especially if that 282 card, like if the title fight probably ends up finish, like one of them get it. If Patty gets a finish, he's getting one. Like Till and Lawler are on it. Like if one of them get a finish, they're getting a bonus. Like just because their names, I guess it is a lot harder for you to get one.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've noticed too. I mean, when I fought Jourdain, that was technically supposed to be a card in London that ended up being at the Apex. Patty was on it, Molly was on it, and I got a finish over a guy that was really, was coming up and a prospect. And we had a great fight, man. We had 2.5 rounds of, back and forth scrapping, and then I Darce choke him with a very clever Darce. And Darces are kind of rare in the UFC. I mean, there's people that got them, but you don't see Darces all the time. And so I figured for sure that was a guaranteed, bonus, but they gave one to Patty, they gave one to Molly, they gave them to other people, and I think it was just because of who they are, and not to take anything from those fights. I mean, Molly had a barn burner of a fight with her opponent, and Patty got a crazy fight as well. But I took that fight. I think when we talk about performance bonuses, you also have to consider, short notice fights. I took the Jourdain fight on 10 days notice, and that's why we had to do a catch weight. But it was like I took a short notice, and against a really tough out for me, on a short notice fight. With a full camp, Jourdain's not as hard of a fight, I think, but taking a shorter notice, I only sparred one southpaw one time before that fight. Like, it was like, well, let's just cram as whatever we can cram in here, and let's get a sparring session in, and then call it good and just go for it. And was willing to have a very exciting fight, I thought, and for sure I thought a bonus was going to be was going to come my way, but it didn't happen. So that's why it's almost a little bit I want to be more particular about certain cards I want to be on. I'd rather be on some of the cards that aren't very exciting. I want to be the only exciting fight on the card, because then, like I said, I think you're more apt to get a bonus that way.
Since obviously you've been back to the UFC, like 5-1, the one loss, obviously a short notice fight, like you've been on a pretty crazy run. Like, what has changed for you, like over the past couple of years? You seem like a totally different fighter.
Yeah, I was talking to some people about this earlier today, and then even previous interviews as well. I think honestly, for me, what I've noticed was that when I was on the Ultimate Fighter, I was from a small town. I was young, it's still a little bit naive, and but didn't really, nothing really fazed me at the time. But I think it was just because I was young, and so I fought on the Ultimate Fighter very well, and I did really well against a lot of the guys on there. And then once I got cut from the UFC and then got back in, I felt like I had something to prove. I felt like I needed to show something spectacular. And so I think that kind of hindered my game and hindered my ability to fight intelligently. And so I risked too much. I was being too risky about it. And I was willing to get knocked out to knock somebody out. I was willing to take fights that I shouldn't have taken. I took, a short notice fight with Devontae up a weight class, which wasn't the smartest idea, but I was so eager to get in the UFC. And then I fought Grant Dawson with an ear infection, was on antibiotics, and I was just too eager to try to jump in there and try to be spectacular, that I think it was my detriment, early on. And so when I took the short notice fight against Sean Woodson, kind of the beginning of these last 6 fights, I kind of had nothing to lose anymore. Like, I was already kind of not necessarily a laughing stock, but I was 1-4 in the UFC. People were still questioning why they were going to give me another shot. And so it was like I had nothing to lose. And and at that point, I just told myself, I'm not going to worry about, being spectacular. I'm just going to go out there and fight the way I know how to fight. And so I think just over time, just starting to win and just starting to realize that that's really what's helping me out. Just go back to the how I used to fight on the regional shows. I have a lot of regional wins against tough guys. And with spectacular wins, knockouts, submissions. And so I'm like, I know I could do that in the UFC. I think I was putting too much pressure on myself to perform and to try to be bonus worthy. But I just told myself, you know what, just go out there and win a fight. And if you get a bonus, you get a bonus. If you don't, you still got your job, and you got another opportunity after that to do that. So I think that's just been the biggest switch for me, was just letting go of trying to be spectacular.
And then with like Alex, like what have you made of his last little run? Like before that loss against Sadiq, like he was on a pretty impressive run. Like before we started this, I was looking at his record. Like you guys have fought a lot of similar opponents. Like, you both fought Peterson, you both fought Choi. Like he fought Austin Springer in the UFC. Like you fought him before. Like what he kind of made of his run, and like how much easier does that make studying him, where you guys have a lot of common opponents?
Yeah, that can definitely be an advantage if you guys have both fought some of the similar guys, and see how he matched up with those guys and how you did against them. And I think me and him are very similar. I mean, even if you watch the Choi fight, the only difference was that he was able to not get fully TKO'd, and that so for me it was like watching him, I thought Choi was going to finish that fight, and then he illegally kneed him. And you got to give props to Caceres for, continuing that fight, because he could have just said, no, I can't continue, and got paid anyways. But yeah, he was on a 5-fight win streak before the Yusuf fight. But I think, I don't want to take anything away from Caceres, but I just don't think that those 5 fights were all that impressive with the opponents. I mean, Choi knocked me out, so I can't say nothing bad about Choi. But Choi's, on a 3-fight losing streak, and he might not even be in the UFC, anymore. But I mean, he beat Kevin Kroom, who's not in the UFC anymore. He beat Austin Springer, and Austin Springer took that fight on 4 days, missed weight. And I don't even think, honestly, that Austin Springer wanted to fight anymore, because usually when you take a short notice fight like that, if you lose, they'll give you another opportunity. But nothing happened with Austin Springer after that. So which is a bit weird to me. I figured he was just taking it so he can get his foot in the door and get another fight and have a fight camp and get ready for it, but just decided to kind of retire after that, which was a little weird. So, and then even the Chase Hooper fight, wasn't all that impressive, and I don't think Chase Hooper's in the UFC anymore as well. So, well, I mean, no, he is, but I think he's on a 3-fight losing streak, so who knows, that situation as well. And also, like, Chase Hooper and Kevin Kroom, were pretty tired and pretty exhausted. Kevin Kroom, especially after the first round, was like, it seemed like he was gassed out, and Caceres couldn't finish him, and so that was like, it was a bit weird that he wasn't able to get the finish on a guy who was. And he had him in a triangle too, that like a locked triangle that he ended up just kind of letting go, which was a bit weird as well. So I haven't necessarily been super impressed with his, with that 5-fight win streak, but still, it's 5 fights and he won in a row against guys that were in the UFC. So you can't really take away too much from him. But it wasn't like he was beating, like a Gavin Tucker or some of these other, guys that are, that have been fighting in the UFC for a long time. And so. Or like, I mean, not even like Gavin Tucker, like specifically, but like, if you see my lineup, Nate Landwehr, Sean Woodson, I'm still Sean Woodson's only loss. Nate Landwehr is killing it right now. Charles Jourdain is a tough out for anybody. Peterson as well is a vet of the sport, been around for a long time. And then obviously Dawodu as well. So I think I've just had my resumes a bit heavier than his in that sense, but like I said, you can't take anything away from anybody, and you never know until you get in the cage. I don't think that Caceres has the power to knock me out, but I could walk in there, you could tap me on my chin, and I could go to sleep. I don't think he has the ability to choke me out, but he could jump on my back in the first round and choke me out, and so you got to take it with a grain of salt as well. So I'm prepared for everything, but I know for a fact his conditioning and his cardio is not up to snuff with mine. I just worked my ass off for this, and so. I'm looking forward to really getting in there and mixing it up with him. But I think it's just going to be a fun one.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
Yeah, I think, I definitely got to, kind of wrangle him in. And I think being at the apex in the smaller cage is going to be a bit more to my advantage because a bit sizable to him. I can kind of put him against the cage and kind of control him a little bit. I got to stay, obviously all the way in or out of his range. But I'm a long guy as well. So he's going to have to worry about my range as well. And but I think just over, the course of 2.5 rounds, I think you'll start to see him break a little bit. I mean, even for my sparring, I have 2 guys helping me out, and I spar 2 guys in the same for my round. So I have 2 guys that are, fresh coming in on me because, usually if I spar with just one guy, I kind of take it out of them, and I want to be, worried about a fresh guy, and I want to be worried about fight-ending strikes, in the 3rd round against guys that are a bit fresher. So I gotta have 2 guys that kind of round robin on me, and I just think doing that and just man, I just don't ever see anybody out conditioned than I am. I mean maybe the top 10 guys for sure because these guys are the top 10 of the world, so these guys are going to be superior athletes. But I just put so much time and effort into my conditioning, my cardio, and my endurance, and my just kind of my mental fortitude as well. So I think just over the 2.5 rounds, you'll see me kind of come on heavy, and I'm hoping to get a TKO or a submission over a guy like Caceres. I think that'll solidify me in the ranking, and hopefully get maybe a guy higher ranked after that.
That is something I want to touch on. Like obviously, back-to-back decision wins for you is something that's not too common. It's like, do you put a lot of pressure on to get a finish then, or is it more just about kind of continuing this winning streak?
Man, like I said before, it was like, I was so, focused on trying to, be spectacular and putting pressure on myself to finish fights and finish it spectacularly. But for now, it's just like, even with the Dawodu, is like, I almost had him out in the first round, but I had to be smart still. And so I knew taking him down, taking his back, and I knew it was going to be hard to choke him out from his back because Evolov had his back for a long time in their fight and wasn't able to Renee could choke him. So I knew his defense was going to be good. It's just one of those things like, I knew the fight was mine, and so I got to be a little smarter in some sense. Peterson, I was going for it. I mean, and not only that, Dawodu, I was going for it too. The first round, I was trying to get him out of there. I was really trying to get him out of there. And with Peterson as well, I was trying to knock the dude out. I was trying to take him out, but Peterson's freaking got a bowling ball for a head, and he can take a punch. And I think he says the same thing about me as well. So, I've gained a lot of respect for a guy like Peterson because me and him, the mental fortitude and the heart that we brought to that fight is very similar. Two decisions in a row. Although one was a fight of the night. I do look for finishes. I'm never looking to edge out victories with people. I'm always looking for a finish for 15 minutes. I would say though, with the Davao after 2 rounds I had in the bank, I'd never been in a fight really where I'd been like, oh, I got the first 2 rounds, I can kind of coast. That was literally the first time in my entire life I've ever even thought about that. And in the beginning of the 3rd round, I think we danced around for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes maybe, without really kind of engaging. And I was okay with that. I was like, man, if he doesn't want to engage, I'm not going to engage. I've already got, I almost knocked him out the 1st round. I took his back for half the 2nd round. I'm pretty sure I got 2 rounds in the bank. And so if I can just make sure I don't get into a crazy brawl with him, I'll win the fight. But even then, I took his back, and I was really trying to choke him, and I was really trying to, pepper him up enough to try to get a choking. But these guys in the UFC are tough, and they're durable, and they're hard to finish. So if you can get a finish, it's impressive. But for me, I just want to get the win. But I'm always going for the finish.
Just a couple more things. Is obviously Caceres is ranked 15th. So like, where do you think a win puts you? And like, do you have another name in mind, or is it just kind of anyone in those rankings?
I always, all my fights, whatever date the fight is, so December 17th for me is the last day that I, in existence for me. I'm not thinking about December 18th. I'm not thinking about any time after that, because I have one thing that I'm focused on 100%. I feel like sometimes you can jump the gun and think about other things. Even with the Dawodu fight, it was like I was so focused on that. I didn't care about negotiations for a new contract, and that came afterwards, and it was a blessing to get renegotiated with the UFC on a new contract. But it's like I wasn't thinking about anything up until I fought him, and then after I fought him, then I started thinking about stuff like even right after the fight, interviewers will ask like, oh well, who else do you have in mind to fight? And I'm like, man, I have no idea. I've been thinking about Alex Caceres for 8 weeks. I've been thinking about Dawodu for 8 weeks. I've been thinking about, man, Peterson. Me and him, we knew about the fight for 4 months. So it was like all I want to do is know everything about Alex Caceres and just focus 100% on that. And then after I fight him, regardless of the outcome, win, lose, or draw, then I can kind of take those next steps and figure out what I want to do after that.
Just last thing though, like, do you kind of have like, what is kind of your goal then for next year? Like, 3 fights is a pretty active year for most people. I know you always want more. So like, what is kind of the ideal 2023 look like for you?
Man, I'm 33 years old. I hope to be like a Darren Elkins where I'm fighting, till I'm old, but till I'm older. I'm not gonna say he's old because he's still in his 30s, but I would love to be able to, continue, fighting for 4, 5, 6 years. But who knows, man? You could take one bad injury and be out for a year, and when you're 33, that could be the rest of your career, basically. And so for me, I want to be active. And I would like to fight at least 3 times a year. It's nice to, especially in the UFC when you're talking about, money that you can live off of and you can make a career out of. It's nice to be able to, take a little bit of time off and just kind of enjoy it, and then get set up for your next camp. Shoot, my very first year of fighting professionally, I fought 6 times. It was every 2 months. It was fight after fight after fight, and that was fun. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't getting paid what I'm getting paid now. I was getting paid pennies compared. So I was literally just doing it because it was a hobby. So now that it's my career, I want to be a bit more smart about things as well. Some people like me, like I said, one of my biggest mistakes was being too eager. I was like, yeah, I'll fight anybody, anytime, anywhere. And that put me in some big trouble. I fought fights that I probably shouldn't have even fought because of that. And, that definitely took a toll on my career with the UFC. And luckily for me, they gave me a 3rd opportunity, and I was able to capitalize on that. But I just want to be as busy as possible and stay healthy.
Well, Julian, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Of course, Cole. I always appreciate it.
Yeah. All right, we're joined by the BKFC president, David Feldman, ahead of their 50th event pretty soon here. David, how's it going?
It's going awesome, man. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I always enjoy talking to you. Like, just want to start there. Like 50 events. Like, how kind of crazy is it that you're already reaching that milestone pretty soon?
It's weird because we did these like BKFC fight night events, and we did a numbered events, and we didn't really catch up until like 2 weeks ago. We were like, "Wow, this is our 50th event coming up! Like, this is crazy, man!" So we're gonna do some pretty cool stuff during that event, as for the 50th event. It's going to be an amazing atmosphere. It's on pace to sell out again, so that'll be our third or fourth consecutive sellout at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, which is it's a tremendous milestone because we 2 events ago we had the highest grossing gate ever at the Hard Rock Casino for a combat sporting event, so it's pretty cool for us.
And then what has like this past couple of years been like for you? You obviously started this company, and I think it's probably exceeded your expectations of how big it's gotten.
Well, you always have that dream of that it's going to be the biggest thing in combat sports. It's going to be the biggest thing out there. But in reality, I thought it had the potential to do that, but I thought it would take 10 years to get where we are at now. And I think in the next 2 or 3 years, we're in like a phenomenal position right now. It's becoming mainstream accepted faster than I thought it was going to. Not just among the networks and the sponsors, the fans, the fighters, but the regulators. The regulators are accepting this a lot faster than I thought they would.
Yeah, that's something I want to touch on. Is obviously a lot more states are getting involved. Like, when do you think we're going to be at that point where it's going to be like kind of accepted, not even just in the states, but like kind of around the world? Like, you're obviously going down to Thailand, you're going to a bunch of different countries. Like, it seems like it's expanding pretty quickly into a lot of places that weren't allowing it a few years ago.
Yeah, it's just consistency and persistence. It's a matter of just keep doing the right thing, having our medical staff the way they are, requiring the safety measures that we have for the fighters, just doing everything right. And if we keep doing everything right, and the fan base is growing, they're not going to have a choice but to accept us because it's going to be demanded by the public. And I think as long as we keep doing the right thing, and I think we always go above and beyond for a medical and safety aspect for the fighters, we find other avenues for them to create revenue. So we're doing a lot of different things for the fighters, and just showing that we want to do the right thing in this sport and we want to be the biggest thing out there. I think just doing all that, is going to open all these doors for us.
And then your roster is obviously, I think it's probably as good as it's been ever. Like, how happy are you with it? Are you still trying to like continue to kind of add on that?
Yeah, I mean, we always have to. So we're going. We did this the merger we did with Triller, and it's a great team out there. They did some things with combat sports that I didn't love doing the concerts and the fights and things like that they mixed in. But one thing they know how to do is they know how to market, they know how to get their name out, and they have funding for us. So I'm telling you that because we're going to be in play for every single free agent that ever comes, becomes to be a free agent now. So we're in the market. We mean business. We're not playing games, and we really want to be the biggest combat sport out there. And maybe we will, maybe we won't, but we will be competing for it. And we're going to compete for every free agent, that we think will move the needle for us. Not just because they're a free agent do we say, oh, let's grab that guy. There's a couple guys out there that are free agents right now, or will be free agents in the next 2 weeks. And when they become free agents, they can really, really move the needle for us and, blow this thing into a whole new hemisphere for us. And that's the kind of free agent that we're going to go after.
Obviously, the biggest free agent out there right now is Nate Diaz. Have you guys been in contact with him and his team?
Yeah, we definitely reached out. I mean, they have a window that they can't negotiate or even talk about deals with because it's a renegotiation period for the UFC. And we respected that. We did reach out not knowing when that was. And, we have another week or so here before we're able to actually make him an offer. And I think the offer we're going to make him, I think it's just going to be hard for him to say no unless he just doesn't want to do this. And that's a possibility. Look, the guy's a legend. He's a warrior. He's been in with everybody. This might not be his cup of tea. But if it is, I'm pretty sure that we can sway him over here.
And you can get him a lot of big fights. Like, I think a lot of people would love to see like him and Mike Perry or anyone kind of like that throw down.
Absolutely. I think him and Mike Perry would move the needle tremendously for us. And there's a lot of other guys out there too that we're going after that I think is going to be great for us as well. But he's a guy that I think certainly would move the needle.
And then you obviously guys, you did the cross promotion with Bellator. Like, is that something you guys are still open to doing with other like promotions? Is like getting some of their fighters for these one-off fights?
Yeah, I mean, see, we're in a different position than these other guys. Like, we need eyeballs on us. We need people to know about us more, and we can borrow, if you will, borrow those fighters from different organizations, and then they can use some of our fighters. I think it's a great play for us. It's a great way for us to get new eyeballs, and we don't have to necessarily keep these guys. Like, I don't know if MVP is coming back with us or not, but at the end of the day, is the needle move for that. Everybody talked about that. Our fighter Mike Perry was able to get a win over him, so it was a double or triple win for BKFC, with that fight, and it's something we're absolutely open to do with other promotions that make sense.
Just because we're on the topic, what do you think is kind of next for Mike? 'Cause he's looked very good since joining BKFC.
And we've got 2 or 3 really big names right now in the mix that I will have an announcement by next Friday, or actually probably at our fight next Saturday. We're probably going to drop an announcement for who Mike Perry's going to fight next. All of them are people are going to go, wow, wow, wow. So they're all good ones. And I didn't want him just to fight another BKFC fighter at this point because he just beat MVP, and I think he deserves to have a bigger name to move the needle even more, and that's what we're going after.
And then obviously Paige is announced that she's coming back in February. Like, how excited are you? Because last time I talked to you, like, you weren't too sure if she was going to fight in BKFC again.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. If she promotes us the way that she did for the first fight and does everything, that she's supposed to do, and comes to fight. The one thing about Paige is she has a lot of tenacity. She doesn't like being in the L column ever, and she'll do everything that she can to get into that W column. And that kind of fighter that we want to fight for BKFC, and if she can continue to move the needle for us, and if she can, it'll be tremendous, and we'll keep that relationship going. And if not, it was definitely a good ride, a good decision, and it's something I would have done over again.
Do you have an opponent in mind? Because obviously, I think one fight I think a lot of people point out is maybe Felice Herrig, or like, do you go back to rebook in that Segala fight, like, or is that still something you guys are negotiating?
I mean, look, I think at this point it's got to be. I keep using the term needle moving, but
Yeah.
it's the needle. It doesn't make sense for her to fight someone that no one's going to care about. So I think we have to put her in with a name, and we have 2 or 3 that we're signing this week that could be good names for her, and equal competition for her as well. So something that she has a very good opportunity to come out with a win, as well as she could get beat too. But I mean, it's not something we're going to put her in lopsided for. She's a veteran in this sport. She's getting paid nice, and she has to fight fighters.
I know that is the last fight of her deal. Like, are you guys still open to extending that if she's open to it?
Yeah, I mean, let's see how the needle moves for this one. Like I said, this one's going to be a huge event. It's going to happen in February. We have a lot of really great announcements for this one, Knucklemania 3. It's going to be a tremendous event, and I think that the needle should move quite nicely for this one. And if it does, then absolutely we're absolutely open to renewing that contract with her.
And then one fighter you guys have signed that has yet to debut is Greg Hardy. He obviously did a couple boxing fights. Like, is there any timeline for when he'll make his BKFC debut?
He's probably going to do that card as well, the Knucklemania card. I want this to be the most stacked card. I want this to be equal to, one of the other promotions' biggest cards that they have, and people are like, "Wow, we got to tune into this one." Not just one good fight on there, but 4 or 5 fights that people are like, "Wow, man, I have to tune in for this one," and that's what we're trying to do. And so far, we have 3 of those booked, and we get 1 or 2 more, and we're going to drop that announcement, like I said, the end of this week.
And then maybe another guy on that card, I imagine, is maybe Jimmy Rivera, who obviously looked very good in his debut, had the draw. Like, is there a thought of just running that fight back because it was a pretty good fight and they fought to a draw?
Could be. I mean, we're also trying to do something up here in the Northeast United States where Jimmy's from, and that's kind of what I was holding off on. The nicest guy I ever met, like just a great guy, really great fighter. So I would have liked to have had him back already, but we're working on some things up here that make a little more sense for BKFC, and we're just waiting in the next couple of weeks. Hopefully, we can get that announcement and do something closer to his residence, which would be very good for BKFC.
Just a couple more things. Like, are there any states or places you want to be that you haven't gone yet?
I mean, we want to be in all the states. I mean, we would definitely want to be in New York City. We want to be in New Jersey. We want to be in Texas, and we want to be in Nevada. Those are 4 states that we're absolutely pushing really hard for. And I think that we have a good shot at getting in all those states, especially with Nevada just legalized slap fighting,
Mhm.
which is ungloved combat. So it's not much different from what we're doing. Um, there's no glove on the hand. They're able to strike the guy in the head. The only difference is our fighters can defend themselves. In the slap fighting, they can't. So I think it's almost a no-brainer. But we'll see. We'll see how that conversation goes in the next couple of weeks as well.
The one other guy I want to touch on is obviously Houston Alexander. Like I talked to him the other day, like 50 years old. Like how crazy that he's doing this 3-0 in bare knuckle, 3 knockouts. Like he's looking very good out there.
50 is the new 30 now for him. I mean, he's looking sensational. I mean, he really is. It's not just that he's getting knockouts. He's looking good doing it. Like he doesn't look like, a guy that's past his prime, tripping over his own feet and things like that. He looks good doing it. So, it's amazing. I mean, I was leery about putting him in at his age, but I mean, he got the first knockout, then he got the second knockout, now he got the third knockout. I mean, if he's 3-0 with 3 knockouts in this sport, in this organization, that has to mean something.
And just last thing I want to touch on is obviously you kind of mentioned a bit earlier, but free agency, you kind of reach out to everyone, but like how much different is it from the past couple of years ago where I've even talked to fighters and they're the ones reaching out to you first, which wasn't the case like a couple of years ago. Like, what do you think that means for you and kind of how you've kind of built this promotion up?
I think it's phenomenal. I think it says a lot about the promotion, not just that we're offering decent money, but that it's an opportunity for them. So, I'm talking to one UFC free agent right now, which I think we're going to sign her um, uh, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week. And the thing was, well, if she goes and fights for this organization, no one's going to care. It's going to be another MMA fight. But if she comes and fights for us, they're going to be like, wow, she's fighting bare knuckle, and it can move the needle for her following, and can really do wonders for her. I think that people always talk about how good we treat the fighters as well. We do everything we can to help them make money in all different aspects of this. We treat them well medically. Safety protocols are all in place. We give them opportunities to create revenue, and we blow up their profile. So I think all those things put together, it's a no-brainer for a fighter to want to fight for us. And it took a lot of time to get there. We had to earn our respect. It was not something that was given to us immediately. People didn't want to look at us. We would mention bare knuckle. Oh, no way, I'm not doing that. Now it's like, hey, I'm a free agency's coming up. Let me reach out to bare knuckle. So, it's a great feeling for us knowing that if you do the right thing, then right things happen for you.
Well, David, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, brother. Take care. Have a good weekend.
All right, we're jumping UFC middleweight Cody Brundage, who's getting one more in, although it didn't look like it a couple weeks ago. Cody, how's it going, man?
It's good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously we did the interview and he's supposed to fight Adolfo. Like I put it out, and then I think that same day, or like maybe a day after, it comes out that obviously Adolfo pulled out. It was on fight week. Like how kind of strange was that whole experience? Obviously, like did you already get to Vegas, or like you're about to fly to Vegas, and like you kind of get where your fights are? Can you kind of walk me through how that all happened?
Yeah, so I was at practice on Monday, like last kind of practice. Wasn't really a hard push, just kind of like a shakeout. And then I checked my phone, and one of our coaches was like, Cody, you need to call me. And I was like, uh-oh. So I called him, and he's like, yeah, he's out. They're going to try to find your replacement. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not flying to Vegas, until I have a replacement. Mm-hmm. And then they offered me somebody, that Tricoli.
No,
Anthony, yeah. And just didn't seem like a smart idea. The guy's never made 185 in his career. He was a 6'6" southpaw with an 84-inch reach on 4 days' notice, and I just didn't think it was a good timing. I told him to give me more time, and they didn't really want to do that. So the fight ended up not happening. Then they told me probably going to be February. So I went home for like 3 days for Thanksgiving, saw my family, kind of reset, and then was back in the gym. And then just so happened that Michael's opponent fell out. I'm pretty familiar with him. I cornered Dustin Jacoby against him. Our gyms fought him before, so it was a fight that I liked. And then we went with that one.
That is kind of the next thing I want to touch on. Like, how much benefit was it that obviously you and Dustin are pretty close? Like, I imagine you were a big part of that training camp, studying and breaking them down. So, like, was that the big reason why you took this fight on short notice, or was it like really any opponent you would take on short notice just get another fight in?
Not any opponent. definitely seeing him helps, but I like the matchup. I think it's a good matchup. He's very good. He's very talented. It's not that I think he's a bad fighter. I just think that I have some areas that I can exploit, and I want to get one more before the end of the year. And it's not really that short notice, because I've been in training camp. I'm not like out of shape. I got to get ready for a different style and a different stance and that kind of thing. But in terms of like being in shape and being fight ready, I'm fight ready. So I didn't feel like it was too much short notice, just kind of trying to change a few things, tweak a few things to prepare for a different body and style.
Still at 85,
Yeah.
even though it's short notice.
Yeah, for sure. 85. That's where I'm staying.
Obviously he fought Dustin at 205. Like his last fight against Albie was his middleweight debut in the UFC. Like, were you surprised he did make that drop to middleweight, or when he fought Jacoby, like, did you kind of think he was a middleweight?
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that it took him that long to drop to 85. He's not a particularly big guy, but he was having a lot of success at 205. I think he was like 6-3 at 205, kind of floating out right outside the rankings, fighting really good guys and having success. So maybe that's why he didn't drop. I'm not sure, but I think 85 suits him better. I don't think he cuts a ton of weight to make 85. I'll tell you, like I saw him in the hotel, saw him on the face-offs with Dustin, and like I said, I don't think he's an overly big guy. So I don't think 85 is crushing him too much to get down there.
And then what do you take away from his fight against Dustin? Like, do you talk to Dustin about it, or do you kind of obviously it is nice talking to him, but like you and Dustin are completely different styles.
Yeah, so me and Dustin talked about it, and I mean, you can take a lot from it. He's super tough, he's durable. Dustin hurt him really bad. I mean, if you can go to a decision with Dustin Jacoby, you're tough and you're durable, no doubt. And yeah, he brings some things that are tricky. He's a savage, man. He'll bite down and try to put your head in the fourth row with everything he throws, and he doesn't take a back step. He's got good cardio, good pressure. So yeah, there's definitely things I can take. Obviously, yeah, me and Dustin present very different problems for people, but there's still things I could take for sure.
And then obviously a completely different change of style and opponents too. Like you're going from Vieira grappling heavy, like wanted to fight to the ground, to a guy that wants to keep it standing. Like, how much different is these kind of few weeks you have then in training?
The training's not really that much different, to be honest. The game plan might be a little bit different. Some of the things we're going to do are a little bit different. But the training's going to stay the same. I feel like this fight is a little bit more favorable just in terms of like you said, you don't really want to go to the ground with Rodolfo Vieira. He's an animal on the ground. That's his world. And that's kind of like my world. That's where I grew up. So unfortunately for me, Rodolfo is a world champ. So it would have been a bad decision to go to the ground. So that would have limited half my game. Whereas with Michael, I feel like I have a lot of options. I feel like I can stay on the feet. I feel like I can wrestle. I feel like I can just mix it up a little bit more than I would have in the other fight. So it's just maybe a little bit more in training, just mixing it up than I was previously, but nothing, no huge changes, just minor tweaks.
Do you have a preference of who you would rather fought? Like stylistically, like I imagine you probably like this one, like you said, better just because you can use that wrestling, or like, do you care if it was Michelle or Rodolfo, or like, does it not matter who it was?
It doesn't really matter. I feel like in the moment I was like, oh, Rodolfo, because it's before the holidays and I was bummed. But now that I got this one, I'm like, yeah, this is just as good. So I don't really care too much. Both guys I felt like I could beat, and both guys I feel like have holes in their game that I can exploit. So either matchup would have been good for me. I know Michael will show up, so maybe that one. Rodolfo has pulled out of 3 of his last 6 fights. So yeah, I guess Michael, because I know he'll at least show up. Hopefully I didn't curse it. Let me find some wood to knock on, but I think he'll show up, and I know he'll fight, so it'll be good.
With like training, like who are kind of the main guys? Is it the usual kind of cast of crew you're working with?
Yeah, so I had Rob Wilkinson. He just won the PFL light heavyweight championship. He demolished that whole tournament, finished everybody he fought. So he was a good look. And then obviously I have Dustin and Josh Fremd, and then Harris Talunzik. He's an up-and-comer. He's on the LFA scene. And then Austin Jones. He's a longtime vet on the regional scene. So I have a bunch of big guys, good guys I've been working with. Same cast and crew, so no real big changes.
Disappointed just at the Apex, or are you just kind of happy to get a fight?
At this point, I'm just happy to get a fight. I think it would be cool to fight in front of people. At my debut, I got to fight in front of people. That was a cool experience. But at this point, yeah, I'm just happy to get a fight, close the year out, and then we'll worry about that next year.
And a nice little pay right before Christmas probably can't hurt either.
Exactly. Yeah, I got to get some Christmas gifts.
Yeah. With Michelle, like obviously a ton of power. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out?
I think it's just gonna. I think, like I said, he's super durable. He has good pressure, but he's not very dynamic. He's a southpaw boxer. He's not gonna really kick. He's not gonna clinch. He's not gonna wrestle. That's just not what he's gonna do. And he hasn't necessarily had to do that. But I think being dynamic really, really throws him off and changes the game. Being able to kick and box and wrestle and clinch and do all of those things and blend it very well, I think leads to me finding the finish. He's a finisher. I'm a finisher. He's shown some weaknesses in areas that I feel like I excel at. So I think I can get him out of there. I don't know if it'll be first, second, or third, but I definitely think I can get him out of there, put him in some places that he's not as comfortable as I am. So, yeah, it'll be good. I think I'm a little more well-rounded than him. So that bodes well for me.
What do you think a win does for you? Because I actually think a win over Michelle or a win over Rodolfo probably would have put you around that same spot anyways.
Yeah, it's super similar. Like both those guys are like top 20, top 25 guys. So, yeah, I think it just sets me up for a great year next year. If I do go in there, handle business, and get another finish, that's 3 finishes and 3 fights. That's good for anybody. And then going into next year, I feel like my goal would be another 3 or 4 fights, and hopefully, I'm hovering around that top 15 mark. So, by the end of the year, hopefully top 15. I don't necessarily want to get there too early. I've only been fighting for less than 5 years, a little bit less than 5 years. So it's not like I've been in the game a super long amount of time. I would like to keep hiding behind wins before I get to that level and just know like, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm confident I can be with these guys and compete with these guys. So, yeah, I think it sets me up well for next year to kind of make a run at the top 15 as the year closes and get another 3 or 4 fights, get to another contract. All those things are important and big.
So what is kind of the goal then for next year? Like, what's the ideal kind of year look like for you?
Like I said, like 3 or 4 fights.
Yeah.
We'll see how it plays out. Probably 3. If I'm being honest, 4 is an incredible year. 3's a good year still. So hopefully 3 fights. And then, like I said, maybe like in that last fight, towards the end of the year, I'm knocking on top 15, hopefully 15, somewhere in there. And that would be a good year. I'd be happy with that. I feel like I said, I need to hide behind wins and keep getting better and then set myself up to make a run. I'm still only 28. I'm pretty young. I don't feel like a need to fast track myself. I have a lot to grow, a lot to get better at, and just trying to set myself up to do that as I hit my prime as well. So it's kind of it's like I want to be there. I want to get higher rankings. I want to do all these things, but I also want to make more money before I get there. I also want to be a better fighter before I get there. So it's kind of a balancing act. But yeah, I think beating Michael on the 17th really sets me up to kind of catapult into next year and have a lot of momentum.
And like you are 28, but it's kind of different 28 where you've only been fighting pro for like 3-4 years now.
Yeah, I think I made my pro debut in April 2020, maybe April 2019. So yeah, a little like 3.5 years, not a long time. And like I wasn't learning to scrap when I was young either. If I'm being honest, I didn't come from a background where I'm fighting all the time. I grew up wrestling, so that was my background, and I've just learned to scrap in the last few years. So it's been I've learned a lot, but I still have so much more to learn and get better at, and that's awesome. But it's also super scary. So I just need to keep hiding behind wins, and like I said, get to where I want to be.
You did say you kind of want to hide behind wins. So like, does that mean you don't really care who's next, or it's really just kind of whoever they give you until you kind of feel you're ready to make that jump to that rankings?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not going to say no probably to who they offer me. If they give me a camp, I'm not going to say no. So even if they don't give me a camp, if it's a good matchup, I'm going to say yes. But yeah, the UFC is going to give you who they want. I've called out some people before in the past, and it's never worked out. So at this point, I'll just take whoever they'll give me, and if my team likes it. So I don't even, the way our system works, I guess I'll just say, is like the fight doesn't even get to me. It goes through to my management, it goes to the coach, and then they call me last and like, hey, what do you think about this? But if it gets to me, I know my coach and my management are good with it. So then I'm instantly going to be good with it. I got confidence that if they think I can win, then I got confidence I can win. So that's kind of how this fight happened. My coach knew of a potential dropout. My manager said, okay, we can go get it. And then they came to me. I was like, well, if you guys think I can win it, then let's go do it.
If they came to you with like rebooking that Rodolfo fight, like would there be some hesitancy to take it just because obviously he pulled out and he kind of has that history pulling out?
Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to take it. I'll be honest. when I took that fight, I knew that there was the potential for him to not make it to the date. I mean, there's a potential for anyone to not make it to the date. But then when I did a little bit more research and saw that, like, out of his last 6 booked fights, he's pulled out of 50% of them. It's just asking a lot for me to risk my family's financial stability on somebody who's very inconsistent. You know, if you told me there's a 50-50 shot, you're going to get your paycheck, you're probably not going to do it, you know? So there would be a lot of hesitancy. It would have to be later down the road. Like, I'm not going to go beat Olin Jacek and then be like, let me fight Hidalgo now, because one, I just beat a guy who's probably a little bit higher ranked than him. And two, I just have no faith in his ability to show up. So like I said, I'm not going to risk my family's stability on that. My daughter's Christmas presents on that. You know, I got burned. Fool me once, shame on me, but fool me twice. Or fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So I'm not going to fall into that.
Is there any pressure to kind of outdo Dustin, try to finish him, so you have the bragging rights?
No, I got no pressure to do that. I feel like it's tough when you put that on yourself. Yeah. I mean, obviously, yeah, I want to get a finish, but I know how tough Michael is, man. Like I said, he's not an easy out. I saw Dustin hurt him bad, really bad, and not get him out of there. So I have a ton of respect for how durable he is. And I feel like if I put the pressure to go outdo Dustin, it's going to lead to a poor performance. But if I do outdo him, rest assured there'll be plenty of trash talk for Dustin coming from me. So we'll see.
Just 2 more things. Obviously, in your debut, you lost to Kakhramonov. I know when we talked, you said you wanted that fight back. Like, it looks like he got released in the UFC. Like, are you disappointed by that? Because I know that was a fight you won back down the line just because it was short notice and you thought you could have beat him.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he might still be in the UFC. He just hasn't re-signed a contract. I know he fought his 4 fights, and I don't know if he's renegotiating or what's going on, because I saw him tweet some stuff that was like, don't believe everything you see on the internet or whatever. So I don't know what he's got going on. I don't know. Yeah, that fight would be great. You know, obviously all the losses you have, you want to get back. I feel like I'm such a different fighter than when we fought. That was a little over a year ago. If they offered it to me, yeah, I would love it. But I don't feel like I need it anymore. I used to be like, I want that fight back immediately. Now I'm like, we'll see. You know, because if we fight, it's going to be way down the road and it's going to be high stakes, and he'll have to get to a certain level to do that, you know, and myself as well. They just don't do that in the UFC. Like my last fight, Trayshawn Gore came up to me. He's like, hey, when can I get my rematch? And I'm like, well, that's not how this works. Like we're both going to have a lot of success if you want to have a rematch. Like we're both going to have to be title contenders if you want to have a rematch. So, yeah, I don't think that fight would happen, but yeah, I'd be down for it. Nothing about that fight makes me be like, man, it's not winnable. You know what I mean? So I'd definitely be down for that.
And just last thing, with Dustin's last fight, like how kind of frustrating was that? Because I thought that was a pretty clear win for him.
Yeah, super frustrating. You know, I know how hard he works. I know how much he sacrifices. And, you know, he was on it's just a lot of things that people don't realize. You know, he's on a huge streak. You
lose half your money if you don't win.
So you lose half your money. Everyone knows that. Like, oh, you only get a half paycheck. But he lost his streak he was on, which was, I mean, pretty historic. It was like him and Ankalaev were the 2 longest streaks other than John Jones at the time, which, you know, like that's huge for his legacy, for things that are bigger than fighting. And also he just fought a great fight. I told him after the fight, I said, bro, I think that was one of your best performances. I was so proud of you and happy to be there watching it, and to have it taken away on a bad decision sucks, you know, and it sucks for Khalil too. Khalil fought a great fight, man. Look great, but to have your win tainted because no one thinks you won and they think it was a bad decision also sucks. So, I mean, it's not good for either guy. One guy is probably a little happier because he gets both his paychecks, but yeah, I hated it for Dustin. That was that whole weekend in Vegas was pretty trash. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It sucked. You know, then Josh goes out and gets caught, and that's tough to deal with as well. So definitely, you know, we've had a lot more good times than bad times. But yeah, it was definitely not a great night. Hated it for him.
Well, Cody, I appreciate the time as always. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, brother. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
All right, we're joined by UFC welterweight Bryan Battle, who took a short notice fight to get one more in this year. Bryan, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going fantastic. You know what I'm saying? I got a fight. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have a fight this time last week, but I got a fight right now. It's awesome. I feel fantastic. So, you know, we're just going to finish off this fight camp and handle business on the 17th.
Obviously, your last one, like we talked after it, like didn't take much damage. Like, were you surprised you didn't get a chance to get like a full camp and a full fight like booked before the year was up, or did you kind of expect that?
No, it was kind of. I mean, I thought I was gonna fight in December. Like
Mm.
I had a feeling I was gonna fight in December. So, um, I think that's part of the reason why I was able to accept the fight without hesitations because up until recently, I thought I was fighting in January. So, you know, it, I did think I was gonna get like a regular fight camp and like a regular fight, but I still train like once a day, unless something schedule wise comes up. So, I feel great. I'm in fantastic shape. I like the matchup. All the stars align. My weight's in a good place. So I'm gonna go out there and make a statement on short notice. You know what I'm saying? Differentiate myself from the pack a little bit. You feel me?
You just because you brought it up, I was gonna ask you later, but I'll just ask you now. Is obviously the weight, like take it short notice. Your last one obviously dropped down to welterweight. Like, was that something like was that a concern at all, or was that something you've always been kind of working on, is just keeping your weight low since you made that drop?
Um, like I knew when I took the fight, I knew I was gonna make weight
Yeah.
regardless. I felt like that was gonna be the toughest part of the fight. Honestly, was making the weight. But honestly, right now where my weight is, it's about where it was last time. I might actually come to Vegas lower than I came to Vegas last time. So, if that happens, that'd be tremendous. But ideally I try to stay in about 3 weeks. Like I could make weight in 3 weeks' notice. That's
Yeah.
generally where I try to hang out. So there's definitely some times where I get into that 4 week range, but once I start getting a little too heavy, then I bring it back down. You know what I'm saying? Get a little heavy, then bring it back down. So I just happened to be bringing it back down right when I saw Morales dropped out of the fight and messaged my agent. I said, "Hey man, they need somebody. You know what I'm saying? They need somebody to fight this dude." So yeah, man. So the weight's not a factor right now. Like it's something I gotta stay on top of, but it's not something I'm worried about.
I was gonna ask you about that if it was you that asked the UFC asked, but like what kind of drew you to ask for this fight? Was it just the opportunity to fight, or is it like a style matchup you like, or what was kind of the reason why you wanted this one?
Opportunity to fight. You know what I'm saying? I was ready to fight. I was messaging my agent like every week, like, hey man, what's up? What's up with this month? What's up with this month? And someone had tagged me in a post on Instagram. And I didn't even look Renat up before I sent the post to my agent. I was like, "Yo, what's up?" He was like, "I'm already on it." And so then obviously then I looked him up, and I do like the stylistic matchup. You know what I'm saying? Obviously he's a tough dude. He has a very um, tough style to deal with, but I feel like I match up well. And the short notice isn't something that's gonna hamper my preparation for that kind of style.
How familiar were you with him when you like were messaging to take this fight then? Because he just has that one UFC fight.
Yeah, I wasn't familiar with him at all. Like I just wanted to fight, and then like I said, then I started looking him up afterwards and looking at all of his fights and watching his last UFC fight and his fight on Dana White's looking for a fighter,
Yeah.
whatever. Um and all of his fights, he's got a lot of fights on YouTube, you know what I mean? A lot of highlight reels. So he's got a lot of footage to watch. Um and like I said, he's a really tough guy. You know what I'm saying? And the style that he fights with is a very tough style to deal with, but I feel like he has really one avenue to victory. You know what I'm saying? And that's putting pressure and wrestling me up against the cage and taking me down and holding me down. And having one avenue to victory, that's against someone like me, that's not
Mm.
the best way to go. You feel me? You know what I'm saying? You got to have multiple threats. You know what I'm saying? And then even on top of that, if you go back and watch my whole amateur career, some of my early pro fights, I used to live on the cage, you know what I'm saying? Like, I do a lot more striking now, you know what I'm saying? I'm a lot more known for my striking now, but even if you go back and watch some of those tough fights, you know what I'm saying? When I'm fighting Petrosky, there's a lot of times we're against the cage and he ends up disengaging because, I'm able to get a good position and get a good frame and start landing some big shots, even with my back on the cage. So, It's just something. I mean, really, regardless. I mean, I'm just kind of like focusing on that because that's what he does. But regardless, I just felt comfortable fighting just about anybody right now.
Where would you rank him, like, of opponents you fought? Because I think the Petrosky's probably maybe the best guy you fought, and that's like that win has aged very well since you beat
Holy
him.
cow, that win has aged like wine, dude.
And
Like,
even like you beating
uh,
like Cody Brundage as an amateur is
yeah,
looking better and
yeah,
better. Like even though
yeah.
amateur fights are amateur fights, but like I think Petrosky, like the way you were able to finish him and being a wrestler, like how much kind of confidence does that give you going into this matchup? Because Andre, even at 85, like I'd have to imagine he's probably stronger to be able to get you down compared to what he is.
I mean, that's kind of. I mean, like to put it into perspective. I mean, I think if you to get to the top, you can't prepare for the people at the level that you're at. You know what I'm saying? So, um, when I'm training, you know what I'm saying? I'm training to deal with people like, Hamza, you know what I'm saying? Because, those are the guys at the top of the division, someone like Kamaru. Um, like, if your grappling isn't at like a super high level, you know what I'm saying? Petrosky's kind of like the benchmark. Like, if you're not at least as good as Petrosky at grappling, then you're not really someone who is making me nervous. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know that that's his like game, so it's like I'm aware of it. You know what I'm saying? We're preparing for it. Like, I'm not taking him lightly at all. We're preparing very hardly, but it's not something where I'm losing sleep at night thinking about, what happens if I can't do this. Like, I feel very confident that I'll be able to handle myself. You know what I'm saying? I think he gets, uh, even if he gets a takedown, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to get back up. It's just not something that I'm stressed about. But I think I went off topic. Petrosky, yeah, he's definitely at the top, top of the list of people that I've fought. Especially if you look at what he's done since we fought. But I guess that's just fighting. There's a lot of really tough guys
Mm-hmm.
that I fought that just ended up not picking it back up after we fought, or are actually doing pretty well. Like you said, as an amateur, I fought Impa, you know what I'm saying? Cody Brundage, you know what I'm saying? Fought another guy who could be in the UFC if he got his act together, you know what I'm saying? You know, then on tough, you know what I'm saying? I fought Cameron, 10-3, Bellator vet. Petrosky, you know what I'm saying? He's killing it right now. I think what is he, 4-0 in the UFC right now? I think he's ahead of me. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, like
That makes me furious. um, um, uh, you know, uh, even people like Gilbert, you know what I'm saying? Like, if Gilbert ever gets back into the cage, like Gilbert's a tough customer, you know what I mean? So, um, and the bulk of guys I fought have been wrestlers. You know what I'm saying? Like
mhm.
Gilbert, Petrosky, on the regional scene, the bulk of the guys I fought for wrestlers. So it's just not, it's not something that's like very uncommon. You know what I mean?
How much do you think your strength is going to play a role in this? Like, obviously, dropping down to 170, like you are going to be bigger than him, probably stronger, just because you used to fight a middleweight. Like, how much do you think that's going to play a role?
Yeah. Well, um, like it's not something I'm counting on. You know what I'm saying? It's not something I'm gonna plan on being stronger than him, but uh, chances are, like if you look at things on paper, like yeah, I'm a bigger dude. You know what I'm saying? And I fought bigger guys, and that's why it's like even in training, you know what I'm saying? You go against like 200-pound wrestlers, 220-pound like wrestlers who are just jacked to the gills. You know what I'm saying? So, whenever I'm going against a welterweight, whether they're 170, 190, whatever, you know what I mean? It's a little bit different. You know what I'm saying? It's the strength, it's the leverage. Um, the biggest thing is with him is if he gets his hands locked around my hips, what I'm saying, I'm going down regardless. You feel me? No matter how strong I am. So it's really about beating him to that position. After we get to that position, um, if I beat him to that position, then I'm not going down. You feel me? Like he needs to get a body lock, um, or his hands locked around me. But We'll see. We'll see. You know what I'm saying? It'll be an interesting chess match that'll happen.
How do you kind of see it playing out? Because like he is a very durable dude. Like only lost twice his career. Like he's beaten some tough guys. How do you kind of see it playing out?
Um, well, there's a lot of different ways I could see it playing out. You know, there's definitely some openings that he leaves. You know what I mean? That no one's been able to really cash in on up to this point. You know what I mean? For whatever reason. So, just like Takashi, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna mess around, see if I can exploit one of those openings early on, and if that doesn't happen, then we got a game plan to deal with them the whole time. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna uh, be moving when it's time to move, not giving them a clean shot. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna got some special stuff cooked up for him. You know what I'm saying? If he gets tired, you know what I'm saying? Don't get tired, bro. Or not, don't get tired. You know what I'm saying? If he ends up on his back foot, then it's gonna be a really, really, really bad night for him. You know what I'm saying? I'm really gonna start teeing off. So, um, there's a lot of different ways that it can go. Always end with me getting a W though.
Back at the Apex too, like undefeated there, kind of like a second home. Like, are
That's my
you
house.
are you happy to be going back there? Or do you kind of wish this one was in front of fans?
I tell you, I really wanted to be on the card yesterday, the UFC Orlando
Yeah.
card, because that's not too far away from where I live. And yeah, because I'm getting comfortable at the Apex. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting comfortable at the Apex, but I know eventually, you know, I'm gonna be fighting in a stadium with people there, and I'm eager to have that experience so that I can see how it feels. You know what I'm saying? So that I can get adjusted and get comfortable back fighting in front of a lot of people because it's been a long time since I fought in front of a lot of people.
You get the win here. Like, where do you think that kind of puts you? Like, obviously, Renata just 1-0. Like, probably doesn't move you. Like, it's more just getting a win. But like, where do you think this kind of puts you in the division?
Well, it's getting a win, but it's getting a win against a guy on an 18 fight win
Yeah.
streak who hasn't lost in 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So, um, and I mean, I think it just gives me a little bit more notoriety, and just makes me a little bit more valuable of an asset. You know what I'm saying? I definitely don't think it jumps me into the rankings because, like you said, I mean, even though he's on this big winning streak, he only has one fight in the UFC, um, and so on paper, I don't see it really pushing me that far, but it's one of those things where this is like beyond the X and O's. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? It's making a statement. It's standing out from the pack. You know what I'm saying? There's a large group of guys, trying to get the same thing. So it's like you got to be willing to do things that other people aren't willing to do. To really push yourself forward.
After your last win, you called out Gary and obviously Barbarina, who just lost RDA. Like, are those still two guys you want to fight, or like you kind of have different names in mind?
Man, listen, I'm not gonna sit here and beg for fights, man. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna
Yeah.
call you out, and if you don't respond to a call out, you know what I'm saying? That's on you. Like I would love to punch you and get you in the face. That'd be fantastic. But I'm not gonna keep on saying his name.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Barbarina, once again, I think me and him would have a really fun fight. You know what I'm saying? I'm not gonna keep on saying his name. So I'm not really picky, man. I got a whole list of guys I would like to fight. I wouldn't even Morales who pulled out of this fight. You know what I'm saying? People think he's pretty good. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't mind going in there and taking his O. You know what I'm saying? Basically, anybody who's undefeated is someone who I'd love to beat. You know what I'm saying? Because I just get a kick out of beating people, being people's first loss. You know what I'm saying? There's something
Mhm.
about that. You know what I'm saying? That makes me warm and fuzzy on the inside. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, Ian and Brian can get it anytime, but there's a lot of guys who can get it. You know what I'm saying?
Just two more things. Like I know most contracts run 4 fights. I know tough is usually a bit longer. Like, are you planning to kind of renegotiate pretty soon? 'Cause this one, like 4-0, it probably means you should get some more money in a better contract.
Yeah, yeah. You know, me and my agent, we've talked about it lightly. You know what I'm saying? After the next fight, you know what I'm saying? After we win the next fight, renegotiating the contract. But that's not something I'm thinking about a lot right now. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, if you lose, then what's the point of it all? You know what I'm saying? Everything is about winning. You know what I'm saying? If you win, you get what you want. You know what I'm saying? Or you have more leverage to get what you want. You know what I'm saying? You lose, it's hard to have leverage to get what you want. So I'm gonna handle Renat December 17th, and then we can discuss all the business of all that stuff afterwards.
And just final thing, like, what is kind of the goal then for you next year? Like, it would be 3-0 this year in 2022. Like, it kind of sets you up to have a pretty big year.
My goal by the end of 2023 is to be ranked. You know what I'm saying? I'd like to have at least another 3 fights. 3 fights would be nice. 4 fights would be cool too. And just staying busy, staying active. You know what I'm saying? I'm constantly getting better. Like I said, I train every day. The resources I have access to now are way more vast than they were before. So it's just like my ability to grow and get better is just so much more. Like it's crazy because now with like things I'm good at now is I'm like how did I even get this far without doing these certain things? And so it's like now there's just been a lot of things that are cleaned up. I'm faster, I'm stronger, my punches are more devastating. My kicks are sharper. My grappling's better. My fight IQ's higher. It's just I feel fantastic right now. So I'm looking forward to getting out there December 17th, putting on a show and putting the whole division on notice again. You feel me?
Well, Bryan, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Hey, man. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right, we're jumping UFC bantamweight Journey Newson, who's back in action here pretty soon. Journey, how's it going, man?
Good, I do.
I'm doing well. Like, fighting end of the year, like, was this a bit longer of a layoff than what you thought you'd have after that win over Fernie back in May?
No, not really. We kind of planned on fighting at the end of the year. Just get one more in before the year's out. Hopefully start next year pretty early.
Looking back on that fight quickly, like, are you happy with that performance? Because, like, obviously you had to fight that Fernie, who was like a top prospect coming into the UFC, and like you pretty much dominated that fight from start to finish.
Yeah, we felt pretty good with that fight. There's still like some holes that we had to fix that we feel like we fixed now. But yeah, he's a tough kid, and we're glad that we got that win. Obviously, we used more tools in that fight than he used. He used just boxing. We had a bunch of kicks, and we worked in my taekwondo skills as well in that fight. That paid off pretty well.
How big of a relief was that win too? Just because obviously you hadn't fought in like a couple of years before that one. Like, your win was overturned. Like, and technically, like, officially, it's your first UFC win. Like, how big a relief kind of was that for you?
Not as a big relief as you'd probably think, but only because I count that Texas win as a win. I was the one in there, so I know what happened. I mean, it's not like that whole thing got erased or it never happened, over marijuana, which it was really Texas is the one who overturned it. UFC didn't really have anything to do with that much, only because that threshold part. But I mean, come on, really, marijuana, and you're gonna take away those are just ridiculous, and I always see that as a win. So I always look at it as I'm 11-3 instead of 10-3. So this is an official win on their record, but for me that was 2 wins for sure.
And then getting Sergey Morozov as an opponent, like, how familiar were you with him? Like, just 2-2 in the UFC, but like he's fought 4 really tough guys.
Yeah, he has. Obviously it's a lot of wrestling, and that's what we've been working on the most is wrestling, cage wrestling, stuff like that. So we're feeling pretty good going into this fight.
With like Sergey, like, obviously a big wrestler, like, are you just kind of expecting him to shoot like pretty early for you, or do you think he's gonna stand a bit with you?
I'm going to assume he's going to stand until he's ready to shoot. He's 18-5. Dude's been around for a while. Obviously he's dangerous on the feet just as much as I am. We're both in the UFC. There's no like easy guys or easy fights that we're taking here in the UFC. So I'm definitely looking at him as a challenge on the feet and on the ground.
So how much does training camp change then for him compared to like your Pascal opponents? Like, is it more just bringing in wrestlers, or do you always kind of work on everything no matter who your opponent is?
This one was a little bit more wrestling. I've been working with Ricky Simone over at ATT Portland, and he's been getting me ready for what I think is about to happen. Just a lot of that cage wrestling, shots open and going straight to the cage and working off the cage and stuff like that. Just trying to make scramble after scramble and stuff like that. This guy's, not tall, so that's always a plus when I don't get these tall guys who are just outreaching me and stuff like that. So that's a plus that we're looking forward to. Me and him are the same, but we're both basically the same height, same reach, so it should be a good fight.
Ricky obviously is one of the better wrestlers in the bantamweight division. Like, how much confidence does that give you? Because imagine if you can stuff his, like, imagine that helps your confidence going into against Sergey.
Yeah, that helps like quite a bit. He's top 10 right now. I think he should be top 5, but that's probably just a biased opinion. But dude has amazing cardio and he has amazing wrestling, and the way he works that in with his stand up is insane. So with him, on my side and getting me ready for December 17th, like, yeah, I feel pretty good going into this fight.
And his cardio is and pace is pretty crazy too. So like, how much does that help too? Because wrestling cardio is a lot different than just striking for 15 minutes.
Right. Yeah, it's totally different. And when we started working together for the last fight against Fernie, like, that's when I found out, like, oh, okay, this is different type of conditioning. And so we've been working a lot of cage wrestling since that fight, but we didn't really like see a lot in that fight because it was more stand up. But I assume with this fight there'll be a lot of wrestling, a lot of scrambles, a lot of cage defense and stuff like that.
Are you a bit disappointed to be going back to the Apex? Like, you just obviously experienced that crowd atmosphere in May, and now you're just going back there, which you fought like just the Randy fight I think was there.
The Randy Costa fight was there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of sucks, but luckily, like, the cage that we're working in right now is about the size of the Apex. It's pretty small. This guy's not as tall, so like, with Randy, he was a little bit taller than I was, and just a few steps back, and my ass was already hitting that cage. Mm-hmm. So with this guy who's not as tall, who doesn't really throw those type of kicks, I'm feeling pretty good. But yeah, going back to that atmosphere of me getting KO'd there, like, it kind of sucks. But I'm looking at it the same way as I did going into the Fernie fight. Like, I just got KO'd. That's over. This is the new journey. Let's step it up and look forward to the future. And it's the same thing here. We'll step back in that cage, loosen up, get the feel of the cage, and hopefully do work up until a win.
You don't hear a lot of fighters talk about that. Like, was that mentally hard for you to like get over that knockout loss then?
A little bit, yeah, for sure. I definitely felt like I could beat that guy, and him getting released from the UFC because he's lost 3 in a row kind of sucks. Hopefully he can get back in, but I always will take that as a big loss because I felt like I could have beat him, but I just got caught. And it happens. Like, I know it happens. A lot of people tell me it happens. It happens to the best of us and stuff like that. But yeah, it sucks. But I'm glad it happened at this high level instead of like somewhere on the regional scene, and I just got knocked out like in the amateur scene or something like that. So I mean, it sucks and stuff. But going back mentally looking at it, I mean, I got help with the UFC PI psychiatrist over there, and they've helped me with getting past all that and not looking too much into the past and looking more into the future, and setting me up with positive thinking, which is what I feel got me that win with Bernie, is because I just had a lot of positive thinking going into that fight, a lot of positive thinking in the first, second, third round, and we're going to do the same thing for this fight.
And then with the Apex, like, it is the smaller cage. Do you kind of dislike that with Sergey being a wrestler? Like, it is pretty easy to get your back against the cage.
I'm just going to try to embrace it. That's what I've been thinking this whole time is I know I'm going to get taken down. So I'm just not going to be like, oh, no, I got taken down, and just start freaking out. So, like, now my mind's like, okay, we're taken down. Let's get back up, or let's work some jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm trying not to get too anxious about it like that. But I'm going to see I'm just going to get taken down. Like, I might as well see it now. That's this whole game. I mean, that's how we got to the UFC. Yes, I can do this, and this to try to avoid that, but I'm not going to try to avoid it. I'm just going to try to embrace it.
Is that something you talk to Ricky about? Because whenever I talk to fighters, that fight wrestlers, it's always about, just stuff the takedowns. They kind of don't worry about getting up. Like, is that something that you've kind of changed, is now just focus on getting up? Because chances are, like, he probably will get you down at some point. If he shoots like 10, 11 times, like, odds are on his side. He's going to get you down at least once.
Right. Yeah, he's most likely going to get me down. Yeah, I've been working a lot of jits, a lot of scrambles and stuff like that. I just know I don't want to be on bottom.
So how do you kind of see this fight playing out then?
I see it playing out with a lot of scrambles, pretty high action paced. I'm working a lot of conditioning for it, just to make sure that we're ready for at least 2-3 rounds of high action paced. I think that's what it's going to be like. I can easily KO this guy, honestly. Like that's best case scenario. I sit here and throw that straight two or left hook. Any punch can knock him out. So me being the we're both pretty what's that word I'm looking for? The same in height and reach. So I feel like that always favors with me because I fought so many guys who are taller than me and felt like I can get in pretty well. So with him, like I feel like now that we have the same reach, it's a little bit more even and I can get a little bit more comfortable. So best case scenario, I KO or TKO this guy. If not, worst case scenario, yeah, we're gonna go back and forth for 3 rounds.
You get past Sergey and say you do finish him. Like, where do you think that puts you in division? Because, like, obviously 2 wins in a row, and like you look at the 2 guys that beat Sergey, Umar Nurmagomedov and Silva de Andrade, and that was kind of a crazy fight. And both those guys are pretty highly ranked up there.
Right. Yeah, this definitely will, if I win, level me up to the rankings and possibly meeting up with one of those guys.
Just 2 more things. I know last fight you walked out with that red balloon. Like, can you kind of talk about that's like what that kind of means to you and why you decided to do that?
Yeah, the red balloon reference was from the UFC PI psychiatrist. His name's Micah, and he kind of brought that red balloon analogy to me as of, living the now moment. I'm always my biggest troubles for the longest time was my past. Always thinking about my past, always talking about my past. I was always living in the past. So Micah definitely helped me out with that. By holding on to my balloon means that I'm living in the now. Like I'm not thinking about yesterday. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm basically right here. And right here is me in an interview with you talking. We're not fighting or anything. There's no fights going on right now. I'm not in a fight. So like there's no reason to stress, and I've always stressed when I would think about the future, or I always stress when I think about the past. So with that analogy, it's helped me so much to like calm down and be aware of where I'm at and stuff. Because for so long, I would think so much into the past and so much into the future. I'd be stressed the whole day, every day, and it just got to a point where it's too much, and that was after the knockout. After I got knocked out by Acosta, it drove me down so much, and the coaches started to see it. Coaches started noticing, and managers and coaches started talking back and forth. And that's when they invited me down to Vegas, stayed with my manager for, I think I was down there for like 2 months, working with the PI and working with Micah with the psychiatrist. And yeah, he's definitely helped me with that red balloon analogy quite a bit. So now going into this fight, what I know now with him and knowing that this type of stuff works, even without that win against Furley, like I was always still going to make, that red balloon like a symbol because it got me through the fight camp, not just through the fight, but it got me through that fight camp with ease, way better than my other fight camps. And the fact that we got the win was just an icing on the cake for sure. So with going into this fight, knowing that type of stuff works and how much it helped me so much, like I feel pretty good going into this next fight.
How much does that help too, just like, your personal life as well, compared to not even just like the fighting and obviously the fight week and all that, but like how much that kind of helped you overall, just a person?
It's helped quite a bit. I walk into the gym with a smile now. I'm more talkative. It got to a point where people, were calling me a ghost just because I was walking around and not really talking too much. You could see that there's a big difference. Especially now, like now I'm a little bit more talkative and stuff like that. And Not as much as outgoing because I'm such an introvert, but I just handle the stress of fighting and, you know, life, bills and stuff. I just handle it a lot better. I'm just more in the now, you know. I'm not thinking too much about the future, what bills I got to pay or who I have to fight. I'm not thinking about all that as much as I used to.
And just last thing, like you could pass circular, like, kind of talk about like, do you have like what is kind of that ideal 2023 look like for you? Because obviously it set you up for a pretty big year.
We want to beat Sergey, and then, you know, depending on who wins against Umar Nurmagomedov and Saidyokub, I think is that same fight is on my card as well. We'll probably get matched up with one of those guys, I assume. And I want to say like March, I'd be willing to fight as soon as March, depending on how fast this fight goes. Best case scenario, like I said, I KO this dude. You know, we could fight January, end of February, something like that.
Well, Journey, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, Cole. Thanks for having me.
All right, we're joined by UFC bantamweight Saidyokub Kakhramonov, who's back in action. How's it going, man?
Good, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Like end of the year fight, like after your last win over Honey Lawrence, like was this about the right time frame for you to return?
Yeah, man, it's the right time. I feel like it's been a long time, you know. I like to be, more active, every 2 months maybe, but sometimes, how bantamweight division is so stacked, so it's like it's hard to get a matchup sometimes.
And your opponent in Said Nurmagomedov, like, were you surprised you got him? Because it's someone obviously the UFC has been trying to push.
No, I'm not surprised because they offered me and then they told me that, we have this guy available. If you want, you can have this fight. If not, you gotta wait until, maybe next year. And I was like, I can't wait. Just let's just do this,
What have you made of his UFC run? Because other than the one loss to Hani Barcelos, like he's looked very impressive in the UFC.
He's very impressive. He's just, I mean, he's very impressive, but he just like, it's just like they look at him like he's a nobody. That's why he's still. I mean, he's fighting somebody who's 2-0 in the UFC. I mean, it's a big fight for me, but it's not a good fight for him.
With your last two fights, like, are you surprised to be getting someone like Said's a guy right near the rankings? Like, is this how fast you thought your kind of rise up the UFC bantamweight rankings would be?
Yeah, that's exactly how as I plan. It's going as I plan.
Are you a bit disappointed just at the Apex and not in front of fans?
No, it doesn't really matter to me. Apex, parking lot, in the gym, in the crowd. It's a fight is a fight. I love Apex.
I know you work a lot with Terrence McKinney, but like, who are some of the other guys you work with for this camp?
I've been working with Terrence McKinney. We have I have a whole team out here. We have a I'm working. We've been training with Cruz Sunshine, Cruz Lencioni. He has a fight on December 9th at Bellator. He's a great jiu-jitsu grappler. I mean, he's a great fighter all around it. And then I have a great team out here at Warriors Camp. So we've been putting work.
And then with Said, like he is a striker, like you imagine with the Nurmagomedov last name, it is usually wrestlers, but he's one of the different ones. But being a striker, like how do you think you match up against him?
I don't think he's a striker. If you say he was a kicker, it makes more sense. Striking is not only kicking, you know what I mean? He's just a kicker, he's not a striker. His hands are terrible.
Do you expect him to try to wrestle you then, or do you think he's just going to kick?
Oh, no, he's going to just run around, kick, take points. He wants unanimous decision or split decision. That's what he wants, but it's not going to happen.
Your pace is obviously a very important part of your game. Like, how important do you think that's going to be against him? Is like getting.
I think it's pretty important.
How do you think you match up against him?
How do I match against him? good, great. I mean, you know what I mean? I love it. This is like I think it's gonna be. I'm gonna make this look easy. Believe
Oh,
it.
what in his game do you think you can make it look easy? Like, is it just on the feet, or do you think it could be on the mat? Like, where do you kind of see, like, why do you think it could be so easy for you?
Just because I want it more. I don't think he wants it the way I want it.
So how do you kind of see yourself win? Like, is the goal then to finish it, or are you just kind of worried about just getting your hand raised?
I'm just worried about getting my hand raised. I just wanna get the dub and then be top 15 on Monday, and we're gonna move up from there.
Yeah, that was kind of my next thing. Like, where do you think a win puts you? Like, do you think this is the win that gets you in the rankings, or at least a ranked opponent next?
I mean, it has to, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if I checked it on, I think on Topology, he's 13, but he I don't know why he's not ranked. It's because maybe he's just not active, on his social media, or he's just not active person. I don't think he really cares about it much. He's just the type of fighter that just wants to go out there and then fight, and that's it. He doesn't want to do all the other things, and then people really don't want to watch him like that.
Do you ever have a little bet with Terrence, see if you could beat his time for a finish? Like, I think it's gonna be a hard thing for you to beat it, because I know you two are pretty close.
Man, that's 7 seconds, man. I mean, shit. That's like, it's rare, man. It's rare. I wouldn't say no, but you never know.
Obviously, this is the last card of the year. Like, a win over him sets you up nicely. Like, what is kind of the goal then for you next year?
Man, next year I want to fight for the belt. By end of next year, I want to fight for the belt.
One guy in the division you have fought was obviously Umar in PFL. Like, is that a fight you think will happen again in the UFC?
Even if that happens, I want that fight like the big fight. You know what I mean? That fight, like, I don't want it now because when I fight him, it will be a big fight, and I want to make good money when I fight him. I don't want to just fight him just to fight him. You know what I mean? I already fought him once. Next time I want to fight him, it better make sense. Either with a main event, or or I don't know, for the belt or whatever. I'm pretty sure for the division is out in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, I actually think a rematch between you two could be a future title fight, or like a title eliminator. Like, whoever wins that fight gets the next title shots. Like, I think it probably does have, but maybe not for another year or two.
Yeah, I mean, they're already talking about him being a champion. You know what I mean? So,
with fight for the belt, then, like, what is it? Just like, how do you kind of see that happening? Like, obviously, you get ranked here. Like, is it then just like a top 5 opponent right away, and then kind of work your way up, or like, what is kind of that year look like then?
I don't know. I don't know what UFC wants. UFC is always it's a tricky. It's I don't know. Whatever. It's like whatever UFC makes it happen. But I'm pretty sure I'll be top 15 after I beat him.
Just 2 more things. Like, obviously, not a ton of fighters from Uzbekistan. Like, what's it mean for you to be able to represent your country on like the biggest stage of the UFC?
It means a lot. It means a lot to me. It means everything to me.
And then just final thing, I know you switched management. Like, why? What was kind of the reason for that, and like, how did that kind of come to fruition?
It is because these guys are family until there's money involved. You know what I'm saying? And I don't want to be with the pack. There was a lot of time conflict of interest. He has lots of fighters under his belt, and then most of them are my weight class. And then there was a lot of time he protected his fighters, that he didn't give me the fight. He gave it to somebody else. It was all that, and at the same time, they promised me a lot, but they didn't do much. It just nothing against him. I still told him, hey, I don't want to, break in the bad terms. I still want, like, we can still be cool, but I don't want to be with the pack. I don't like that. I want to be alone. You know what I mean? I don't want to be with 100 different guys.
Yeah, it obviously makes a lot of sense. And like, I just one more final thing too. I know you and Terrence are close. Like, how much does that friendship kind of help? And you guys are both kind of taking the UFC by storm.
It's fun, man. It's fun. We I don't know, man. Terrence and I, man, we just get along, man. Sometimes things don't get along, and then next thing we're cool again. It just, it's Terrence. It's just crazy. I mean, I can't even put in words. He's fun.
Well, Saida, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Yeah.